Hey everybody, it's Ryan. Thanks for downloading today's show. And just a reminder, as always, Wake Up War Chant is brought to you by our friends at For the Table, Madison Social, Central and Township, in the heart of College Town. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, from Tallahassee to Thomasville and from coast to Atlantic coast, it's time to Wake Up War Chant here on 97.9 ESPN Radio, and it is a very happy February 1st, Thursday, 2018, to you and yours. You're currently listening to the voice of Ryan Kelly. I was the director of digital media at warchant.com, and it's so good to talk to you here. And thanks so much, as always, for waking up with us here. 6 a.m., 97.9 ESPN Radio, WTSM app, TuneIn Radio app on your phone, ESPN Tallahassee on your desktop. Listen, if you're on your desktop this early in the morning, hats off to you. That's someone who is getting straight to work, and I can always appreciate that. Or you're an insomniac like me. Maybe that works. It's strange to have an insomniac hosting a morning show, but that's just kind of how I've always been. I already mentioned the podcast, radio at warchant.com. There's your email, at wakeupwarchant is your Twitter account. Our friends at For the Table, of course, have always made this go. Madison Social, Central, Township, and the So-Do Banking Company. I'm talking quick because I'm going to talk to you at the end of the show, and we've got a lot of stuff to get to. But if we're going to do things right on my last show here on Wake Up War Chant, 97.9 ESPN Radio, well, we're going to have to do one of my favorite games here, one of your favorite games, one of my favorite segments on this show, and that's, of course, Over Under with Gene Williams. And Gene Williams, the boss man, the founder and administrator of warchant.com, is standing by on the Skype line. Gene, good morning, man.
Hey Ryan, yeah, we had to come on your last show and do one of my favorite segments to do. We had a lot of fun with the Over Under the last couple of years. Figured we'd do one last one, do a big picture one, touching all the major FSU sports.
So what you're saying is we have to, in due time, in about a year, someone owes someone a beverage or wings or something.
That sounds good. One of the fine establishments that, somebody over at Madison Social, one of those places For the Table will have to do that since they are a sponsor of the show.
Of course. You got to help the people that help you. That's what you got to do. And speaking of helping the people that help you, of course, anybody who signs up for War Chant is a help to us. And right now we've got a pretty awesome promo for them, Gene. What's going on?
Yeah, this is the best promo you're ever going to get at War Chant. I can pretty much say that. We did a little bit of it early in the year. We've got a few items left to do. This is pretty cool. You sign up for an annual subscription. You get a $25 gift card to Garnet Gold. You can load up on your FSU stuff. Get one of those Lethal Simplicity shirts that are really cool. You see all over the place. They've got them at Garnet Gold. So you get yourself that. Plus, you get the exclusive members-only War Chant T-shirt and the stainless steel War Chant tumbler, which I believe you have, Ryan. And so you get all that free stuff, you get it sent out to you, and then you also get 6 free months added to your subscription. All in all, that's over $110 value you're going to get just by signing up for War Chant and getting all the good stuff on recruiting with National Signing Day coming up with Michael Langston, getting all the great content from Ira Chaffel and Corey Clark, of course, and then getting to jump in there with all the insiders and dentists and mid-level boosters and everybody else on those the Tribal Council message board, which is a lot of fun.
Yes, of course, the great crossing roads of Florida State sports discussion over at the TC. All right, let's do it. Here it is, your over-unders. Hoops, baseball, and football will go in that order because that's the order they're going to happen. Big picture over-unders here. Regular season wins for FSU basketball is set at 21. Florida State's already at 16, so you're venturing, can the Noles get 5 more wins? I think that's just about right. I think with the regular season, I think they might pick up maybe one more than they should. I think 22 is the right number. I'll play over.
Really? Okay. I mean, there's no doubt they're going to – I think 20 is the base there. You know, I know you and I talked yesterday a lot about there's some really key games coming up here. It's really going to dictate where that number is. I'll be a little bit more conservative. I'll say they end up with 20 and they go 500 in conference. Maybe I'm being a little bit, I don't know, maybe a little bearish there on that. So at 20, I was tempted to do 21 as a push, but I'll go and be conservative and go with 20, and that's I'll take the under.
Number of wins in the ACC tournament is at 1. I think if they're seated around 5 or 6, that's probably about right. I'll call it a push. However, if they get that 4 seed and they get a double bye, well, some things might fall, but I'll call it a push.
Yeah, I'm with you there on that one. The one thing I said, it's a positive for this year. It's in the Barclays Center. So you don't have the typical, they've not fared traditionally very well when they play the tournament in the North Carolina where it usually is. So maybe a fresh area, they'll play a little bit better up there. But yeah, you got to go with at least one win in this one.
And let me say, after going to that thing last year, if anybody who's listening gets a chance to go to that thing, go. It's awesome. That venue's awesome. The tournament, they do a great job there. Make sure you get to go to that. FSU tournament seed for the big dance. You've set it at 8. Again, Gene, you've done a good job. I don't think we've ever played over-under with basketball before, but you've done a good job with these because I'm pushing again.
Well, I did go by, I cheated on this when I looked at the latest bracketology by Lenardi, and he did have it at 8, and that's kind of what I thought. I figured it'd be at 9 or 8. I was hoping it'd be 9 so I could be a little positive and go with the 8 because that's what I was thinking going in. So, man, I hate to keep just doing pushes because really kind of the odds are against you when you do pushes. But, man, this sure looks like an 8 seed. Now, if they get to that, you mentioned that, if they get to that 22 and you win a game or two in the tournament, I could see that going a little above there. But, again, that's being a little optimistic. So I think 8 is right about the sweet spot. So I'm with you.
The one thing I will say is that Lenardi, at least whenever you look it up, always seems to be maybe trending a little lower on Florida State than most teams or most bracketologists. Jerry Palm usually has them a little higher. So maybe it's just Joe being Joe type thing, and maybe they do squeeze a 7 seed. Who knows?
Yeah.
Baseball. I'll do regular season wins first. How about that? 43. Yeah. So 43 guarantees that Mike Martin becomes the winningest head coach in college baseball history. I believe 35 does that, actually.
Yeah.
But I think they can win over if they stay healthy. If this team's pitching staff stays the way it is, there are very few teams that are going to be able to hit the baseball on them. So I like them just a little over this.
Now, I think they're a little under regular season, under 40 last year. Obviously, they did real well in the postseason and cranked that win total way up there. But for regular season, I think it's going to be right around 40, 41. Stuff happens, that you get some injuries or you have a little slump here or there. So I'm going to go with just at 40, 41. So I'll go just under. It still will be a good season. I think they'll improve on last year and get a good shot to get to the big dance.
All right, over-under wins for Tyler Holton set at 12. I like this over, especially when you look at early on in the season. This out-of-conference slate is not the toughest. Xavier, South Florida, UNC Asheville, Kansas. That's 4 right there. So basically, can you get 8 conference wins? I think they can. I like them over.
Yeah, he had 10 wins last year, but I mean, you only had 18 starts to get. It's not like Major League Baseball. You get a ton of starts and you can crank that win total up. That's hard to do because there's going to be some low scoring games where you get some non-decisions, no decisions and stuff. So I put that there because that's what I thought. It's about a push, but again, just to be a little different than you, I'll go under. I think he gets about 10 or 11, or maybe he pushes, but I'll go slightly under.
And I think it's just at 13 or 14. I certainly don't think he's going undefeated or anything like that in the season. But football recruiting class, final ranking, Gene, you have it set at 15. I'm going to play it. So we're saying under would be anything under the number 15, right?
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
It's a little under, by the way. I am fully on board with what Taggart's been able to do and the fact he's been able to do it this quick. I'm optimistic they'll finish under.
Yeah, I'm with you there as well. I think under. I think they're going to be they're going to be real close to that top 10. I don't think they quite get there, but I wouldn't be surprised 13, 12, somewhere in that region. As we take this, Warren Thompson hasn't committed, but we expect him. So, I mean, he should be out of this class, which would put them, I believe, in the top 20 for the rankings already. So they're already knocking on the door of that 15, and there's still a lot of big-time prospects left to fill up those final slots. So, yeah, I'm pretty strong. And probably of all of our picks, I'm pretty confident FSU will finish within that 15.
Freshman wide receivers. Over under set at 3 with more than 5 catches, I should say. Sorry, didn't mean to stumble over that. Freshman wide receivers with more than 5 catches, over under 3. God, you set these good. I'm pushing it.
Yeah, it's a thing. It's hard to say how many. There's gonna be a lot of freshman wide receivers out there this year. Man, I don't know. I'll go. Just to be a little. I'll go under. I hate to keep pushing things, but I'll go under. I'll say they'll have 2 receivers with like maybe 10 catches, and the next guy will have like 2 or 3. So I'll go with under on this.
Finally, regular season football wins. It's set at 9. The schedule doesn't do you any favors. I hate to be this guy, but I think 8 is probably about the right number. I won't be shocked if it's 9 or 10, but that schedule's not going to do you any favors. I think what you do against Virginia Tech and what you do against Notre Dame is really going to set the tone for what happens with the rest of the schedule, because you're probably going to split with Miami and Clemson. You need to get those two if you want to be above it. You got to go to South Bend and win. You got to win that game on Labor Day night. I'll be conservative and play under, but if it's 9 or 10, I don't think I'll be shocked, and I think that's more what Florida State fans should expect.
No matter how many times I look at this schedule, I keep coming up with 9. I do different series. I guess one thing I'm thinking, assuming Virginia Tech at home, night game, Doak Campbell to open the season, they've done pretty well, obviously other than Alabama, but they've done pretty well in these kind of openers in the past. So I really like Florida State in that opener. So I'm kind of chalking that up as a win. And then you go that stretch with Miami, Louisville. Yeah, maybe you lose one of those. You chalk up the Clemson loss, and then between the at NC State, at Notre Dame, I see one loss between those two, and that puts you right at 9. Maybe I'm being too optimistic on that Virginia Tech game, but I've noticed when they've played quality teams with a lot of talent, they have not fared very well the last couple of years. So I'm looking at 9, so I'm going to go right at the push again.
All right, so there it is. Lots of pushes, but plenty to be excited about over the next calendar year of Seminole sports. Gene, we got to wrap, but I did want to tell you, man, thank you so much for all that you've done over these last couple years. Thank you for taking a shot on some punk out of college, and thank you for letting us have all this fun in the morning. I really do appreciate it, and I'm always happy to consider you a friend.
Well, we appreciate it, right? Always have fun talking. We'll talk a lot of superhero stuff. We have that in common. So I'm looking forward to our discussions. We get the Black Panther coming out, some other good ones. But yeah, you've made this show. We've been able to move it to the Daily Show, and it's become a staple for Florida State fans, and that's because of you. So always appreciate you, Ryan, and I'm sure we'll have to have you on and time again, maybe to throw out some over and unders this season.
Yeah, absolutely. I am all game. Gene Williams, founder and administrator of warchant.com. Well, we've got a couple surprise guests coming up after this. Including an old friend stopping by, and, well, somebody who I've called a friend for even longer than an old friend. So I guess an old friend. I don't know if he'd like that very much, but they're both coming up here on Wake Up War Chant 97.9 ESPN Radio. Thursday on Wake Up War Chant 97.9 ESPN Radio. Leonard Hamilton, by the way, going to be at his Collins show tonight with our friends at For the Table, Madison Social Central Township, but that's over at Madison Social. It's on another network, so I'm not going to talk about the other network, but if you want to go say hi to Coach, experience the best happy hour in town, 4 to 7 tonight, 3 different places, 3 different experiences, and 1 great price. Okay, so if I'm doing the last Wake Up War Chant, and the short list of guests is the short list of guests, there are very few, and by very few, read none, other than maybe the other 2 guys that are on the show today that I would have on, the Mr. Jeff Cameron, of course, the host of the Jeff Cameron Show, the afternoons here on 97.9, a friend, a mentor, and a guy that I am so thrilled was able to come on the show via the line today. Jeff, good morning, buddy.
Well, good morning, man, and God, that is the nicest intro that anybody has ever given me, good sir. I've got the warm fuzzies, and I'm a big fan of yours too, buddy, and I hate to hear that you're not going to be doing this show anymore. I certainly don't wish the new guy ill will by any means, but I'm rather partial to you, buddy.
Well, thanks, man. I'll always appreciate it. That's from years of getting the coffee, right?
Well, you worked hard, buddy. You were a hard worker, a smart guy, and insightful, and you have a great personality. And you're witty, and so I always enjoyed that. But when you're an intern at the time, you still have to.
You pay the dues.
Yeah, you got to pay your dues, and getting coffee was part of that.
That was always my favorite.
As I drink gallons a day.
That was always my favorite. I could always tell when Jeff was in need of a pick-me-up, because back when we were over at the old station, the old house, the old green house over on St. Michael and St. Francis, around the All Saints district, he would always, it would usually be around 2:50. The studio door would open, and there would be a card in Jeff Cameron's hand, and he would look, and he would see who was free, and he'd go, Ryan.
So the idea being that if you were interning at the time, you needed to, at the very least, have an alarm set on your watch or some sort of notification on your computer to let you know that soon I would be opening that door and at least pretend to be busy. Because otherwise you're getting sent to get coffee. Now, admittedly, I have to say that shows great trust on my part. I was handing you my credit card every time. And that is true of all the interns because we've hired the best of the best. And you being the creme de la creme, good sir, I knew you would do a fine job.
Oh, well, thanks, man. But also, let me say this in Jeff's defense. Jeff is not one of those people who just makes interns run for coffee. The 97.9 internship is an awesome internship. It's the only reason I'm sitting here talking right now. However, I do know that Jeff Cameron likes his coffee with no sugar and enough cream to give it an brown eggshell consistency.
Yeah, and it's funny, Ryan, since you had to do that, I've gone to now drinking coffee black on the rare occasion that I've had more than 5 cups in a day. 4 or 5 is about what I have. If I have more than that, I'll go back to a little eggshell brown action. But I've eliminated the cream because I'm fat.
Black coffee. I don't know if I could ever.
Oh, come on, young man. You'll get there.
All right.
You'll get there.
All right, let's get into some football, shall we? Of course, Jeff, it's been a while since we've talked. I know, obviously, there's a lot of overlap between the people that listen to our show and a lot of the people that listen to your show. But just kind of briefly, it's probably been about a month since we've had you on. Your thoughts the last month and a half of this new regime with Willie Taggart?
Well, gosh, it took a long time for it to be completed, right? At least in terms of the staff getting done. And I'm pretty patient, especially when it comes to recruiting. That's not my area of expertise. So, the people who were concerned that time delay would somehow affect recruiting negatively, I understand they were zeroed in on a daily basis about that getting done, that aspect getting done. And yet I usually said, okay, well, we'll see. And, we're at a place right now, given the way that the Jimbo Fisher era dissolved and how quickly that happened, to have to be willing to accept that we're going to have a hiccup this year in recruiting. It's not going to be a great class. Well, anyhow, Willie puts together a staff, and by the way, I like the staff. I think the potential for the staff is great, and certainly we know it's very good when it comes to recruiting. But there's enough solid X's and O's in there sprinkled in. And anyhow, I never imagined we'd be at a place where we're watching this guy put together, frantically at the very end here as we approach signing day, a top 15 class. So I'm elated, and my thoughts about football are it's an interminable offseason because we're all anxious for that spring game to get here and to get a glimpse of what it's going to look like. And then also, of course, for the regular season when you open with Virginia Tech and the Willie Taggart era begins in earnest. I just think that there's been an infusion of life and enthusiasm surrounding this. I think whether you're a Jimbo loyalist or a Willie Taggart enthusiast or something in between, a wait-and-see guy, I think either way, you're just very excited because I think the time was nigh. I think that the things had gotten stale here, and maybe it was best for both parties to move on.
Yeah, and it certainly seemed that way. And, of course, you and I talked to people. We read the tea leaves for a while. I've been around the program. That this was something that needed to happen. This building, when you went to Doak Campbell Stadium, when you went to the Moore Athletics Center, things just felt different. They didn't feel like they did. Heck, even during, I know Jimbo wasn't always the most beloved outside of sometimes his locker room early on, 2010, 2011. He did things a lot differently. It rubbed people the wrong way. Some of it was warranted, some of it wasn't. But even then, all the way up to around, early 2014, this program felt different than it felt after. There was something to it. There was I hate to say an aura, but there was a weird kind of, I don't know. I wouldn't call it a dark cloud because you're still winning football games. I wouldn't call it that because there wasn't some gigantic off-the-field controversy, and when there was, everything was dealt with. But you know what I'm trying to say. Something just felt different. It felt off. It felt wrong, and you knew it was going to culminate.
I think off is the right way to put it. Something was amiss, and depending on who you talk to and those sources that you alluded to, you'd get a different answer, but it certainly things weren't adding up to a situation where everybody was on board and everybody felt good about the program and everybody felt like moving forward all would be fine and Florida State would be back in contention to pass Clemson, win the division, play for an ACC title in the very near future. You didn't get that sentiment. You didn't feel like people believed that any longer. And if you coupled that with the fact that not only were you being lapped by Clemson in your own division, of course you had suffered some losses to Louisville along the way, one of them in historically bad fashion, you just thought, well, I wonder, is he going to be able to right the ship? And a lot of people were certainly invested in that way of thinking and believed that he had earned the right to make that happen because of the national championship run and the 29 straight wins and all of the other things that he accomplished. But at the same time, I think there were many more people who were suspect that could ever occur, and I was one of those. I certainly didn't feel like this thing was going to be righted anytime soon. And so, listen, without it getting into an ugly name-calling affair, I wish him well. I interviewed the man off and on for 10 years. I've been doing a segment for 10 years with him, back to when he was just an offensive coordinator and then later on a head coach in waiting. And I got to know him well. And there are some aspects about Coach Fisher that I greatly admire. And there were moments where I was very appreciative of not just our professional relationship, but otherwise. And but that said, something turned, and I don't know what happened, and I don't know that we ever will. We began to see different sides of Coach that hadn't really seen before, even when he was angry, just different things that we hadn't really seen. And I don't know what was at the root of that. But it's probably best, again, that everybody move on and hopefully he'll have success and find what he's looking for. But I'm invested in the Willie Taggart era now, and I'm excited about it. And I think a lot of the kids are too. A lot of kids want to run this offense. A lot of kids, especially great athletes, they want to get the ball in space and make plays. And they'll get that opportunity here.
And I think it's fascinating. One of the things, and of course, opening press conferences are often full of platitudes and cliches and what boosters want to hear, but Willie Taggart did say something that I think was absolutely right. There are a lot of kids that want to come to Florida State that Florida State has not talked to and has not built a relationship with, and it's clear. That's absolutely clear when you see the way that they've been able to salvage this so fast to where people even think, there's a great chance they're finishing within the top 10 to 15, at least in the Rivals rankings. And the fact that you were able to put together this staff, I think, is a big reason why. Willie, of course, is so good at going into homes and really a straight shooter. You and I both talked about that when we got our first chances to interact with him. That's that he's, really playing what you see is what you get. And I think parents who are used to salesmen coming into their room and their houses, week after week after week, come to my school, I'll give your son this, I'll give your son this. There's an honesty to the frankness of it that I think is a breath of fresh air, not just for boosters and fans, but especially for those parents, but that staff as well, man. You alluded to it earlier, but Harlan Barnett is a slam dunk hire. Walt Bell is a guy who's considered one of the freshest up-and-comers. And the fact that Florida State really didn't spare a ton of expenses to pay these guys. Now, I'm not telling you they're making Brent Venables money, but the fact that the base salary for Harlan Barnett's $1 million pretty much, I think tells you that there's room to grow, there's room to expand, and there's room to extend.
Well, and that they're invested in winning championships, and that they obviously have a situation now, financially speaking, that is better suited for the university, and it's also a draw for coaches. So it's a win-win. And, you talked about Willie Taggart's ability to recruit and to connect with young people. I mean, this is an important aspect of the hires that he made. This staff got a lot younger in a hurry and a lot hipper, and that's not code for black. I just mean younger, and younger means connected to the younger generation. It always has. I do think that in Florida State's case, you're going to see that pay off big time. I also think Willie, we talk about the way he talks to kid. He's thoughtful. He's careful. He's measured, in short, and I do think that resonates. But relatability is important. Willie, a young African American coach, but was a young African American all-world player out of Bradenton in high school. He's not too far removed from being one of the guys that he's now sitting across from and talking to and trying to come play college football, and that's a good thing.
Absolutely, and the relatability of region, and I'm not going to sit here and beat the drum that everybody beat the week up to his hire, but it really was the perfect fit. It was the right place, it was the right time, it was a guy who fit Florida State's needs and really fit what Florida State was looking for out of a person after the last guy left. And so I'm just anxious to see this play out on the field, and I'm also anxious to see what a challenge spring can be, because I want to know just how many of these new guys come in compared to how many of these old guys are willing to buy in, because let's face it, when something like this happens throughout all sports, not just college football, that first year is really important to those next two, because you got to get the new guy or the old guys to buy in to the system, or else you're just waiting for the new guys to come in and you're hoping they're not corrupted by the older guys. That's just kind of how this works.
Well, and I listen, Ryan, right off the bat, buddy, the real test is upon us already, because you've got a situation in which young James Blackman played well, was put in an untenable situation, had his moments certainly where he didn't play well, but I think by the end of the year, and obviously in the bowl game, he played exceptionally well, and he took his licks. He went through a lot, and one would figure he'll take a huge leap forward, and he's going to be competing with a guy in DeAndre Francois, who certainly there has been a number of controversies, and I'm not talking about legal troubles, although there was the dust-up most recently. It appears that obviously no charges are going to be filed there, and it may have been him who actually was the one who was a victim. We don't know, but he did call the police. Anyhow, the point of all that is to say this: his commitment to Florida State, his commitment to that locker room, his commitment to his teammates, and to this football team has come into question. And so we've got a quarterback battle. And right off the bat, you're going to find out what Willie Taggart thinks and what he likes and doesn't like about these two kids. And if anybody else like Bailey Hockman or J.J. Cosentino, dare I say, can enter the picture, I don't know. But it will be fascinating, because that's the most high-profile position on the field. And in that offense, those kids can put up huge numbers. It's going to be interesting to see who he's leaning towards.
There's one place where commitment has not been questioned, and that's the FSU basketball team. Those guys seem to love each other. They really like playing as teammates. They're all locked in, I guess is the way of looking at it. And it's basketball season, so during conference play, especially the ACC, you take your lumps, you take your wins, you take your losses. 1 week they're great, 1 week they're the worst. That's just kind of how basketball fandom can go, especially at a place that's not necessarily used to the marathon that is the ACC schedule, meaning a lot late in the year. And overall, spirit of full disclosure, Jeff and I are talking before this Georgia Tech game that happened last night. This is the only time we had to work it out. But I did want to talk just kind of big picture on the basketball team, Jeff. They're in a really good place right now, and if they, dare I say, went 2-0 this week, you kind of feel like the tourney train's already rolling in.
Well, I believe, they're in a position now where they're almost cementing that. But like you said, you always got to be careful. It's a brutal league, and you can go south in a hurry. The thing I'm most proud about with this program and where they're at now is they were able to get off the mat. And if we're talking big picture, and Florida State currently sits at 35 in the RPI, so obviously they're in a real good place. But if we're talking big picture, I had my doubts. I have been a Leonard Hamilton supporter because I believe, given what he's been tasked with and the lack of resources to do it, that we haven't had we have had no right to have delusional expectations of what Florida State is in the conference that is renowned for basketball against the resources that Virginia and Duke and North Carolina and so many others, Syracuse, Louisville, et cetera, have. So when they've had bad seasons, I've thought, well, it's going to happen. You're going to be inconsistent. But there was a run of futility and some whiffs in recruiting and mistakes made that I thought, what a shame. Leonard's tenure here is going to end poorly, and we're going to have to move on. Even those detractors who had been so vocal at times that I thought they shouldn't, they were gaining weight, and I got it. I understood it, and I began to understand why we might need to do that. And then, lo and behold, a year ago, 26 wins, undefeated at home. You make the dance, you win a game, you get to that second round. You've brought in a ton of talent. You lose some of that talent to the NBA, and you think, well, it was a nice run there, and what a good way for Leonard to go out if it happens. But that much talent, that much scoring gone from a team, there's probably not much of a chance they can rebound and sustain momentum and get back to the tournament this year. And yet here they sit with everybody bought in, everybody, as you said, believing in one another. A lot of talent. They play with great tempo and effort. They're fun to watch. I mean, they're a draw whether you like basketball or not because they light it up and they hustle and they care. And they also happen to be pretty good. A lot of guys are taking huge steps forward in their games and all at the right time. And so it's been fun to watch the Kofers of the world and others step up and Angola play the way that he has. And so many of these guys are a lot of fun to watch. So I just root big picture, obviously, for Florida State and Leonard Hamilton. But this is a really likable group. Just if you're looking at a one-year group, this is a really likable group. So I hope the sky's the limit for them. I think big picture, you would say if they make the tournament again, it's been a great season, back-to-back years, and maybe you got something going now where this becomes a little bit more of a destination and people latch on a little bit more consistently from a fandom standpoint. That's what I'm certainly hoping for in the waning years of Leonard Hamilton's tenure.
Leonard Hamilton is 69 years old. He's always been a nice head coach, but the fact that he's been able to adapt and change, I think, speaks volumes about what he knew what he had to do to get this thing done.
It's a hellified vision to have that late in life. Listen, Ryan, let's be frank. People of that age do not often decide to shake up how they do things when they've had success. It doesn't happen. They get comfortable, and it's understandable because it's a young man's game in many respects. You to make change, real significant change, whether it's in recruiting or style of play or coaching or individually, whatever it might be, you have to be willing to endure long, hard days to get that done and to go to work on yourself and your program. And he's done it, man. He's the fountain of youth. He's found it anyhow, because when you look at him, he looks 40. He's got boundless energy. He's still sharp as a tack when you talk to him. He's fun. The kids love him. And I'll tell you this, I know in this day and age, whether it's football or baseball or basketball, people kind of roll their eyes. Let me tell you something. That guy cares about the kids and about the university and about whether or not they graduate. He'll get emotional when he talks about some of the kids that have come through this program and that made the kind of transformation we're describing in order to be able to graduate, get a degree, and walk, even if they never went on to play pro basketball. He gets emotional. That's how much he cares. And so, you know what? I laud the man for all of those things.
Jeff, thank you so much, my friend. We're all out of time, but I always appreciate you coming on. Of course, we're going to talk soon. It's not like I'm going anywhere, but thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, well, it's a pleasure, man. I enjoy listening to you, and, we'll continue to see each other at all these events and hang out, and I value our friendship, so I appreciate you having me on, buddy, and be well.
Thanks, man. Old friend stops by after this. Wake Up 4 Chant, 97.9 ESPN Radio, brought to you by your friends at For the Table.
Girl, I'm leaving you tomorrow.
Well, it stinks that our last segment here on Wake Up War Chant is about a basketball loss. A bad one at that. We'll certainly look at it that way. 76-72, that's the Wake Forest Demon Deacons, who snap a 7-game conference losing streak to the Florida State Seminoles. Not to the Noles, but 7 consecutive losses coming into this game. Florida State has their 3-game winning streak snapped as well. It stinks we have to talk about this game, but it's great we get to talk about this game with our old buddy Drew Hicken, who joins us on the line. And Drew, listen, it's like I said yesterday and today and any other day we've talked about this game this week leading up to this. This was one that does really not much for you if you win, but there's hell to pay if you lose. And this is the first really bad loss that Florida State's taken all year.
Yeah, here's the thing about this Florida State team. They just seem to, they don't really want to be as good as they can be. They hold themselves back time and time again. For whatever reason, they can't close out these games. I mean, you've seen them start really strong time and time again, and for whatever reason down the stretch, it's always tight no matter what the circumstance was. I mean, as bad as that Louisville loss was, this one's pretty bad too. And we talked about this team, I don't know, maybe it was a month or two ago last time I was on, and we talked about the expectations for this team and if they had changed, and we both agreed that maybe they had gone up a little bit. But in reality, it looks like this team might be exactly who we thought they were. They are going to be more than likely. I think they'll make the tournament, but what kind of noise they'd be able to make in there, I'm not sure. Free throw shooting, obviously, still an issue. And when one of your main guys doesn't show up, they just have a lot of streaky guys on the team, like you said. Angola had a real rough game tonight, and he's either hot or cold. There really is no in between from him. And Kofor's the same way. And it's just, they're missing that go-to guy that they've had in years past. And we thought maybe for a while that would be their strengths, but it's turned out to be they have no closer.
Well, in the second half, when you're shooting 0 of 7 from beyond the arc, when you started 6 of 14, that's a killer. And when you needed those buckets, when you needed those big game-changing three-pointers, you didn't get them. And the fact that Phil Kofor had a decent night, of course, 23 points, 9 of 16 on the floor. He's kind of out of that slump. C.J. Walker fouled out of this game. He was only 2 of 6. Brian Angola had one of the worst games of his career. He's 1 of 8 from the floor. Terrence Mann with a decent night, 4 of 9. Chris Kamaje, 4 of 6. MJ Walker, 4 of 8. This was just a game where you just didn't get enough good performances from guys to win. And you don't need a great performance from everybody every night to win. That is one of the strengths of this team, is that it is so deep and that there are enough guys that even if they are streaky, you just need a couple of those streaks to sync up at once and you're going to be okay. However, when you are as bad as you are down the stretch as this team was, you kind of deserve to lose this game.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I said, it's the same old story. Every Florida State loss this year has pretty much followed the same script. And you know, this team, as much crap as we've talked about that Florida team, they remind me a little bit of that Florida team. On any given night, this Florida State team is good enough to beat anyone in the country when they're shooting well and things are going their way and they're playing some defense. But every once in a while, nobody shows up and they can't shoot and they can't close and they can't shoot their free throws, and they can lose to teams like Wake Forest. Wake Forest is not a good basketball team. This is an inexcusable loss, especially when you're trying to make a tournament push. And like I said, I still expect Florida State to be a tournament team, but a month or two ago, there were some projections of them being near a 5 seed. There's absolutely no way that's going to happen now, unless they finish really, really strong. But I just don't see that happening. They're just too inconsistent.
Well, I think it's hard for anybody in the ACC because this has been just a meat grinder. And I know that's cliche, and it feels like it's something we say about the ACC every year, but look at those standings right now, and outside of Duke and Virginia, there's nobody really on a given night that can't lose to anybody else outside of Pittsburgh. And again, I hate to kind of be that cliche machine, but for the first time in a long time, I feel like that cliche, that narrative, that thing that's been beaten like a drum for years and years and years is true. There are a lot of teams that are kind of like this, that are, you know, very talented. They've got some pieces, but they're streaky. Sometimes that they just don't have what it takes. Of course, it's really hard to win on the road just about anywhere in this conference. And I'm not excuse making, because this is one that you should not have been able to take. This is not a loss that you should have walked out of. Anybody who's heard me talk over the last couple of days knows that. But I'm just not ready to gloom and doom this, because this is just how basketball season works. You have a couple wins, you have a couple losses, especially here. You're still on track to get 9-10 wins in conference and be in the tournament. If you're 500 in ACC play, maybe you need a win in the ACC tournament, maybe. But I would tend to think that you're probably in at that point. And if you get 10, I still think you're in, and I still think all that's possible and ahead of Florida State.
Yeah, I think Florida State has enough good wins to get themselves in the tournament with a decent close to this season. Like I said, I do expect them to be in. It's just after all the talk last year of the fired Leonard Hamilton and how we've always talked about how ridiculous this was, and granted, you know, a lot of teams in the country are this way. This is just kind of Florida State basketball. I mean, they're always going to compete. They're going to be able to knock off some big dogs here and there. But you can't expect them to go, you know, to rattle off 40 in a row at home or whatever they were on track to do. What did it end at? 29, was it? I mean, it's just and that the fact that we're even able to talk about that and have some fire with Florida State basketball, it's a lot of fun. And this team, again, like you said, I don't want to be too gloom and doom, because this team's been fun to watch. They are a good time, and when they click, man, they like I said, they really can beat anybody. I think back to that offensive performance against Duke. It would have been nice if they had a little defense to go with it, but good Lord. I mean, when this team clicks, they're really explosive and really fun, but this is just kind of Florida State basketball. This is kind of what they do. Every once in a while, you're going to get these head-scratching losses. You don't really know why. But at the end of the day, I still expect them to be in the tournament.
I'm with you there. And, of course, game against Louisville this weekend. We'll find out. And as the season goes on, well, we're just going to have to see how it shakes out. We won't be talking about it here. But at least I won't be talking about it here, and you won't. But, Drew, it's always a pleasure to have you on, my friend. I'm so happy you were able to come on this last show. And here's the thing. It's just to play off what you said. If you want this team to get better, you want this program to grow, keep caring. Keep being thrilled after wins. Keep being upset after losses. Because the more you care, the more the university sees that. Drew, thanks, man.
Yep, thank you.
The great Drew Hicken, everybody. I'm excited that we got to do that. Now let's get to the hard part. I've got probably about 3 minutes here. So I'll tell you this. We weren't able to get Michael Langston today. My schedule just did not work out with his, so we were not able to talk about Warren Thompson committing to Florida State, which is, of course, listen, if you follow recruiting at all and you know that a Armwood wide receiver out of Tampa picked Florida State, what a monumental big deal that is. What a shift that is. And now Florida State has jumped all the way up to 16th in the rival recruiting rankings, which, by the way, is just one behind that 10 to 15 slot that we were talking about. Those over-unders that we had at the beginning of the show. Yeah, it's amazing what can change in a couple hours when you pick back up recording. But speaking of that, I wanted to thank the War Chant staff from the bottom of my heart, because this has not always been easy being able to do this show the way that we do it, especially since we switched back off our live format back to kind of this pre-recorded format after Drew left. And the fact that, you know, sometimes we're talking with each other at 11:30 at night. Sometimes we're talking with each other very early in the morning because something either hasn't happened yet or something's about to happen, or maybe our schedules just didn't work out with me working the other gig. And I'm just so appreciative of Ira and Gene and Michael and Corey and even Ryan Clark, all those guys who were able to take their time and really just be very, very cordial and really nice. I mean, you want to talk about a great group of human beings. That's what you've got here at warchant.com. And I haven't been able to personally meet Aslan yet, but he seems like a great guy. This is not goodbye for me with Florida State. WCTV has been a media partner with Warchant for a very long time. I'm going to be working hand in hand with the sports department there. I'm still going to be covering the Noles. You might even still hear me on this program every now and then. Who knows? Family has always meant a lot to me and, well, to my family, and there's a reason why. My dad's the youngest of 10, and as of right now, the 9 of them that are still living all live in Jacksonville, and right now I've got an uncle in the hospital who's fighting off some infection in his lungs, and I'm thinking of you, Uncle Harold, and I'm praying for you, and I love you, and I'd be remiss if I didn't thank my family on a day like today, because they've always been supportive, and I know that's one of the cliche things to say, but, you know, when you talk with people and you meet with people, you realize sometimes that you're just lucky to have that you're lucky to have people who care about you and support you and are behind you and are willing to tell you good job or are willing to give you tough criticism. Whatever it is, they're the best. Ronnie, Rose, Renee, love you. Thank you so much. Jeff Cameron and Tom Lang are the reason I got this job in the first place. They have always been exceptionally kind to me. I don't always think I've deserved it, but I'm happy we've been able to work together. And I'm thrilled that, you know, I went from being an intern to one day being a part of this 97.9 lineup with them. And I owe them everything. Everything, everything, everything. Thank you, guys. Ron Vitrano took a shot on us when he really didn't have to. He didn't have to put this podcast on the air, and he did. Ron, thanks. Warchant team, you've been a pleasure to work with, and I'm still going to work with you, and I appreciate it. My friends on the beat who aren't working with Warchant, you know who you are. Aria, Kurt, Joe, Brendan, Chris, Safid. I could be here for a while, but thank you guys. Here's the thing. People think that just because you write for different places, you don't like each other. Here's the thing. We're all kind of coworkers. We all share the same press box. We all do the same thing. We all smile and have a lot of fun. And I'm happy to have people to share that with every day when I come into work to a press room. I never wanted to be the only Florida State podcast you listen to. It makes no sense that you would just listen to one voice all the time. And I don't think that's a great way to be well educated. I only wanted to be the first you listen to. And I've always wanted to do that because our content was good and because we built a relationship. And I hope that's what's happened over these last 2.5 years. That we've been able to come together and talk and laugh and sometimes forget about how cruel and awful the world is sometimes. And just talk about football or baseball or recruiting or whatever. I know I've got to go. I know we're out of time, but I, again, just wanted to say this is not goodbye. I'm going to be talking to you real soon. I appreciate everything you've done, everything War Chant's done. And I don't have to work a shift on Friday till 1 o'clock. So you know what I'm going to do tomorrow morning? Sleep in. Even though I've been pre-recording these, and it's been more late nights is the problem, not the early mornings. But you get what I'm trying to say. Going to get to bed at a reasonable hour, wake up at an unreasonable hour, but not for long, because we got to get back to work. My thanks to everyone for coming on the show today, everybody who's ever come on this show or supported this show. My thanks to you for listening. Go Look and Wingos is up next on 97.9 ESPN.
WarChant.com is the ultimate inside source for FSU football and recruiting. And now you can get in on the action for free for an entire month. WarChant.com is offering a risk-free 30-day trial subscription. Get full access to the #1 website covering the Seminoles just by entering the promo code WarChant30. That's WarChant30. Sign up and get in on the world's most active FSU message boards. Receive breaking news, stories from our award-winning staff, plus get exclusive interviews and videos. Just enter the promo code WarChant30. WarChant.com, your ultimate Seminole sports source.